As the days move on, how should both candidates handle this?
And there have been questions, too, about whether there was the existence of a protest, either one that was ahead of the attack or perhaps one that came later. So I think we've seen both candidates talk more gingerly as the days have gone on about it. Obviously, President Obama had a good moment in his debate, in the town hall debate last week about it. Mitt Romney hasn't focused on it so much in the last week, but as you played Paul Ryan's comments, there's no reason to think that he won't on Monday night. But again, he's going to have to be careful. He obviously came out of the gate swinging in a way that seemed a bit premature at the time. Both of them have gone back and forth and being sort of in the right, if you will. And I think there's no chance we're going to know exactly what happened by Monday. So I think they're both going to have to try and couch it in terms of what we know now and not get too far ahead of themselves.
So Adam, you've seen what I just read to Ann, and we're getting reports on both sides of the argument, political argument that's being made by the candidates at the moment. Who does it favor at the moment, if either of the two?
Sure. I think it's right that Obama had a very good moment in the town hall debate. He talked about it not being a political issue, and he's the one who has to greet the caskets when they come home. That being said, I think the issue overall is quite bad for him, and it's not at all surprising that Romney would want to bring it up again on Monday night, simply because it's, foreign policy, it is always tied to the president, and wherever the fault lies in this, I think that people do hold the president accountable for what happens with Americans overseas. And overall, you saw his foreign policy approval ratings drop in the wake of the attack. So I think that it does benefit Romney to keep bringing it up.
Net, where do you think it stands right now? Because we've got reports yesterday from the AEP about the CIA. We have more information from the LA Times. We seem to be getting something every day or so.
As far as the politics go, I think that any time you're talking about something where whether Obama had control over it or not, how much he knew about the requests for more security, or what they were, how upfront they were about what happened in the days after, I just think it's bad for him to keep having to talk about this. This was a lapse. 4 Americans died. That's bad. There's no way to spend that.
To you, Ann, when we look at what had happened during the debate and how Candy Crowley had come out and stated that which the president had stated correctly, and also said that which Governor Romney had said correctly. When you look at that, now that we have several days to kind of digest this, does either candidate look good from that interaction? Have they come out okay?
Well, I do think that President Obama certainly appeared, let's say, stronger than he had in the first debate, and I would say arguably as strong as.
Because on social media seems to be saying it's okay for Romney now several days out, where it was not the case the day of.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that, if you read the entirety of President Obama's statement from the Rose Garden, the one that Candy mentioned in her fact-checking, it's not as though President Obama came out and said this was an act of terrorism. But, of course, we don't actually know to what extent it was an act of terrorism yet. So, he called it, he condemned it as being part of any act of terror that we would condemn around the world.
No acts of terror is what he said.
No acts of terror, exactly. So, but that was not his opening gambit in the Rose Garden. So I think on both sides, we're going to look. This last debate was not actually a foreign policy debate. This was a moment. This was in response to a question from a member of the audience. I think we're going to have an even more fruitful conversation about this after Monday night.
Yeah, we'll see how they're able to articulate what can be very complex ideas and things that we don't necessarily, as voters, as Americans, deal with each and every day, and make it digestible so that voters can use it once they go to the voting booth. We'll see how that happens. Ann Kornblut and Adam Sorensen, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, the fact check you need to hear to be ready for Monday's debate. This is MSNBC, the place for politics.